So that, you have to put that signal out with the highest possible clarity, because if you don't, you will be smothered by noise, and no one will find you. And they won't know that you're out there. Now, obviously, if you got here, you're already somehow putting out some signal. So you probably know what I'm talking about. And then the last thing I want to delve into in terms of my own commitments is the commitment to wealth. For me, this is married to optimism. In other words, it's married to beauty. I believe that we must be committed to producing wealth, that we must imagine a future that is wealthier than the past, that is wealthier in new forms, not only capital, but a redefinition of wealth, a reinvention of wealth that is a wealth of access, a wealth of mobility, a wealth of knowledge and information, a wealth of capacity, a wealth of connectivity. These are all new forms of wealth that we're creating, and we must imagine a future that is vastly wealthier than the past in order to accommodate 3 billion children who will be joining us during your lifetime. So I'm committed to trying to understand, how do we produce more wealth? Lots of it. And how do more and more people participate in that wealth, so that it's less and less a kind of vertical distance and more a horizontal distribution. So that's the kind of, those are the values that are really driving what I do. So again, I want to go back to sustainable living, community resilience, creativity, and innovation. You can see that if you take that approach, these three things are, in some ways, a kind of inevitable outcome. These are the things that you would work on. And as it turns out, these are the things that we're working on. Now I'll go a little bit deeper into number 14, because I find this is one of the most difficult ones for young people. That I suffered this terribly. And I'm still incredibly cool. I mean, it's like, no matter what I do. I mean, it's like, even worse, I get cooler as I get older, which is driving my children crazy. But number 14 is don't be cool. Cool is conservative fear dressed in black. Cool is actually staying where you are in a territory that you know. So you're not going to risk if you're cool. It's again, seems counterintuitive, because cool always seems so risky. It's actually what we know. Cool is stick to what you know, don't risk anything. You might look ridiculous. But cool is limited by fear, and it's ultimately cynical. Being not cool is the coolest thing you could possibly do. Because, you know, I said it earlier, designers cannot afford the luxury of cynicism. We can't afford to be cool. We must engage and solve things. And so you inevitably fail, which is deeply uncool. You know, to kind of be failing is not what cool had in mind. Cool is negative and pessimistic. That way you can't be disappointed, which is really uncool. It's remaining in the zone we all agree on. It's self-marginalized. And for me, this is the biggest tragedy. To see people with great capacity who position themselves out of the world, out of the problem, out of the conversation, in order to be cool. And it's knowing where the boundaries are. And it's something that I mean, that's actually, honestly, something I've never been very good at, so I've been fortunately uncool. Our approach is quite different. We're optimistic. We are, you know, we believe in the possibilities to change the world. partly because we've experienced it in a small way. We've experienced things that have changed things. And when you go to places that have happened, that have experienced that, where it's happened, it's an extraordinary feeling in the culture. In Chicago, a revolution happened here. We invented the skyscraper. And so you can feel in this place, after 100 years, still an energy that knows that we did that. There's a general discussion about design and architecture that you will not find in any other American city. And it's because a revolution happened here. We're open. The whole idea of being uncool, being open to being not cool, is that you don't know. We're not the expert. We are learning. We're learners. So we're willing to learn. And we will explore things regardless of fashion. We're enthusiastic, again, which is practically anathema to cool. We don't sit back and wait for others, and I get the sense from just the kind of A-type energy in the room that I share that with you. And we're sincere. We're not going to do and say things that we're not committed to and that we don't believe. That produces, and in some ways it requires, a level of innocence, of being able to protect the creative spirit from a world that is filled with negative energy and negative approaches that could really corrupt and be quite disastrous. And ultimately, from my perspective, it's the most generous thing we can do. The most generous thing I can do is learn with you. Be open to learning, to studying things, and to learning, and to sharing that process, rather than simply broadcast. So that's really the approach that we take. And there are two people that I wanted to kind of just touch on as examples of this. John Cage and Dean Kamen. I had the pleasure of meeting both of these people. John Cage is one of the great artists of the 20th century, composer, visual artist, a really extraordinary practitioner, and probably the coolest guy in music in the last century. He did a composition that was silent. And basically, introduced us to the idea. John Cage said, everything we do is music. And he introduced us to listening to the world. That in fact, when he did his silent composition, people suddenly heard the world